we've been lacking offensive linemen and an offensive scheme that works for our athletes. So to have another guy that's mobile, flexible, he can get in there and clear holes for folks. That's always a plus, and I'm happy to have him. I'm not necessarily happy with the way it happened. He should have picked us to begin with, but it's every kid has their own decision to make. I've been through that process with my own son, and it's very time consuming and very stressful. So to have family and friends and everybody telling you where you need to go play, I hope he's found his final home and is able to get acclimated to the program.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I'm pretty pumped about him. What do you think about Jerrid Williams?
I don't know a lot about him other than he was a good player at Houston for them. The level of competition is certainly different in the ACC. Not that we're superior per se, but you got a guy that's coming in that's played with King before. He's familiar with his game, and I think that would be a great addition. I think he's got 3 years of eligibility, if I remember correctly, and would be immediately eligible to play. So that'd be huge. He's coming in, giving us some depth and some age. I'm not going to necessarily appoint him a starter, but if he came in and he worked hard, I'm sure he could work his way into being one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What about Reed too? I mean,
that's an interesting situation, man.
Well, he's a good kid. I know him as well. I don't know what his reasoning was for wanting to transfer initially. I suspect it had something to do with playing time, but don't quote me. I'm not. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he's reconsidered and the staff has welcomed him back and the team has welcomed him back, I'm happy for him. I really look forward to seeing him doing big things here. So our starting offensive line is probably going to look pretty similar to what it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hopeful that with a year of struggle and stress and some mild successes here and there, that we're able to right the ship, because if we can put a serviceable line together, with our stall of running backs and with the senior quarterback, some unproven young wide receivers, I think we can have a really good season.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and that leads me to my next question for you, brother. Okay, so I don't have the website in front of me that made this prediction, but Miami is the favorite on this website to win the ACC Coastal. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's too early for that. Every time we've been predicted to do something grand, we've fallen on our face, and I'm of the opinion I just want to get out there and see them win. I can buy into winning an ACC, Coastal down the road, but that really isn't Miami standard. Miami standard is and has been national championships, and the only way you get to the national championship is to win one game at a time. So. I think it's presumptive. I've seen some say that Virginia Tech's going to be the rise of the Coastal. I've seen some folks who said Carolina. Mac Brown's recruiting his old self off over there, and it's probably up to his old tricks. But we have the most talent in our division, so there's no reason we shouldn't win the division. It just comes down to, are we a team or are we a bunch of good players?
Yeah, that's perfect right there, man. I mean, I want to buy in. I've bought into the hype about De'Ara King and Rhett Lashley, but I mean, just what this team has put me through the last 15 years, like it's hard to kind of get over that just like in one off season and say, yeah, we're going to go 11-1, 10-2 just because we have a quote unquote easy schedule. I say we go 9-3, 8-4. If you had to pick right now, what do you see us what do you see us doing in 2020?
7-6 and then 6-7. Anything is up.
Yeah.
But I would say, we should win at least 9 games minimum. Anything less than that, I consider the season to be a failure. Again, Manny's had time, as a head coach to work in that position. The staff that he has around him is competent, and it's folks that have been there for a while. His coaching staff, everyone has experience. When I wrote something last season about Manny, and I encouraged him to hire people who were experienced and could bring something to the table, whether they're coaches or graduate assistants or, just consultants for the program. Having folks around that have, been part of a championship caliber program or organization such as Ed Reed and others, that brings another mindset into the coaching room, and it brings it into the meeting rooms, and it brings it out on the practice field. And everything that you do on the practice field is going to translate to the game field. So, if you play hard in practice and you work yourself really hard in the weight room and film sessions, then, you're poised for success on the field. So anything, under 9 wins is a failure, in my opinion, this season.
Okay, and I asked this question to a lot of the guests that we have on the show, and I want you to be honest. First thing that comes into your head. Not do you think Manny, I'm not asking do you think he can be the guy, but do you think he is the guy for Miami right now?
The first thing comes to mind is who else would be? If it isn't Manny, who else would be? I think, he's a Miami guy. He certainly understands the brand. He understands the history. I think he is the guy right now. What he does this season in terms of his decision making is going to determine whether he's the guy going forward. He's got guys, like I said, that are competent, that have experience in what they're doing, and have been successful elsewhere. So, the intent is for them to come here and be successful. What that, level or measure of success is going to be, that jury's still out. But I think Manny has at least the end of this season and potentially into next year if things don't work out this year. They're going to be calling for his head. But I think he has until next year to right the ship and to, make some real waves in college football. He's been an off-season champion for 2 years in a row. And, while that brings headlines, it hasn't translated on the field. So we need to see that translation on the field. And if he's showing improvement there, I think it'll buy him some time.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly got the politicking down of being a head coach. I think, he gets that from his dad, but we'll see. We'll see if there's some head coaching talent in there.
Well, I'll tell you this: the players love him.
Yeah.
And their level of adoration and respect for him, you can't get any better than that, elsewhere. So hopefully they can turn that around on the field and show that love by executing the game plan that's put out for them. And it's a 22-man game. So you got offense and defense. What I've seen lacking has always been special teams. Your 11 on special teams are going to determine where you're starting on offense and or on defense on any given possession. And having that position as collateral duty previously with the tight end coach, last year with the linebackers coach, I don't like. I really wish we would have a set coach for that. I understand there are limitations with, how many coaches we can have, but I don't think we necessarily need 3 linebacker coaches. We really need to put an emphasis on that. Beamer ball, it comes to mind. They won a lot of games based on how they handled themselves on special teams. And Miami has been a big special teams program. They haven't been as of late, but, historically, guys like Hester and others, who can really get in there and mix it up. I really would love to see the emphasis there. So a 33-man, attack with 11 on offense, 11 on defense, and 11 on special teams.
Yeah, we were talking about this with our last guest that it'd be nice to see some reshuffling on defense, perhaps. And I
what'd you have in mind?
Well, just maybe even like cleaning house on the defensive staff. And
is that due to recruiting or coaching or?
It's kind of a mixed bag, a little bit of everything. I mean, Banda is by far our best recruiter on the defensive staff, which he's done just fine. But I don't love having his track record be easily the most successful on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've kind of underwhelmed at recruiting at every other position, really. Guys like Pat Key and Rumpf, come to mind is guys that are, struggling to pull their weight, in my opinion.
Well, let me pull that string a little bit, because I don't know if your listeners know how recruiting at Miami works. They don't recruit their individual positions. So they recruit geographical areas.
Mm-hmm.
And they go out and they collect information on the athletes that are identified in those areas, and they bring that information back, whether it's film or discussions, things of that nature, and they talk as a team, as a coaching staff, about each of the individual kids, and they review their film together. And in order for an offer to go out, they all have to agree that this kid is going to be able to help us beat Florida State, and so I think a lot of fans put an unfair burden on Rumpf, per se, thinking that he's going out and whiffing on all these kids when he initially started, he wasn't even able to make offers. Okay? He was a first-time coach in college and was on a tight leash, But when you look at his developing and his coaching style, he does a great job with the guys that he has. So I want to go to bat for him. And for those who don't, know as intricate about the program as I do, just understand there's a lot more than just, one coach going out and saying, I want you, and the kid saying, yeah, I'm going to come. It's a lot deeper than that. And as far as Banda's concerned, surprisingly, there's been some rumblings that people don't like, Banda or his recruiting style, et cetera, that we get guys in spite of him. I happen to know him. I think he's a decent guy. I think he's a good coach. If you were to get rid of either one of those guys, who would you look to bring in? It's easy to identify a perceived problem, but what is the perceived solution to that? No. And that's what I would pose to listeners.
That's I've been more of a Rumpf fan, just because he doesn't. We're not going to get guys like Jason Marshall, but I didn't think we were going to get that kind of guy anyway. When you lose to FIU, it's not that we're not going to get those players. But I just look at his his developing over the past few years. I mean, what he did with Michael Jackson at cornerback, and what he was able to. He made Banda a really solid cornerback, and Malik Young. It's hard to overlook that developing of his cornerbacks, and I think it's such a sensitive subject to talk about with Canes fans, because he's a national champion, like he's an all-time legend at Miami, and he really look at Miami's pass defense, like the defense against the pass, like since Rumpf has gone here, it's not like we're one of the worst in the country. We're always like top 15, top 20 against the pass, and so I'm a little bit more on Rumpf's side, so I kind of agree with you on that. And Banda is, I don't know, Banda's an interesting case, and Patke, and maybe it would be good to, go after someone new, kind of like what they do with the offensive side of the ball. I don't want to see Rumpf get fired just because he can't land a 5-star kid, but I don't know, it's that's a sensitive subject to talk about with Canes fans.
Sure. And it's open to, subjectivity. Honestly, people have opinions, and it's easy to say, hey, I don't like what's going on. But again, I challenge anyone, go out there and find a replacement that you think, one, is better, two, is available or willing to come, and three, what does that timeline look like? I'd argue our defense hasn't been the problem the last 3 years. We've been